Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. Today, I'm super excited as I'm bringing you one of the people who I actually follow online on Facebook and on social media to help myself ground and just feel like how do I calm myself down? And this woman has amazing strategies and techniques, and almost like she calls herself the stress out mama's secret weapon. So she's totally my secret weapon. So this is Tejal V. Patel. She's a former divorce attorney turned mindfulness and meditation advocate for moms and kids. Tejal helps time-starved mamas, me, you, yes, learn the art of effortlessly infusing stress relief habits, 3-minute meditate and mindful parenting practice into their busy schedule to create a less stressed and more peaceful life one day at a time. And I know we all want that and are looking for these kind of solutions. She's a sought-after mindfulness expert because as a modern mom herself, she's relatable, honest, and openly shares her motherhood challenges and practical tips to mindfully overcome them. She works closely with young children by teaching her mindfulness curriculum in classrooms and touches the lives of moms around the world through her Mindful Mama Experience and Mindful Kids Masterclass online courses. She's currently writing her first mindful parenting book. Yay! So excited for this. To give modern moms a new and fresh approach to use mindful resets to help them stop snapping and stay calm in the midst of stressful parenting moments. So without further ado, welcome Tejal to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. I know that our conversation is going to be juicy and fun, and I know there's going to be a lot of good and amazing information that can help me and help all the other mamas who are listening to this. So before we begin, I love starting the show by asking, since this podcast is for mothers, what are you loving about being a mom right now?
Well, I'm currently pregnant with my second. So I really do feel like when you're pregnant, there's like this other energy. Like I feel so intuitively like connected. And so I'm really, the first time I was pregnant, I don't think I enjoyed the changes that were happening in my body. I was like, whoa, like I'm getting bigger and, but this time around, I'm really embracing how amazing our body is and how it grows and how it changes and how it nourishes the baby after it's born. So I'm really just relishing the pregnancy phase right now.
I love that so much. It is a miracle, and I wish more moms would see that. But I have to be honest, I did not enjoy being pregnant. I have to put it out there.
I didn't either the first
time. Because being pregnant, I personally felt I was a whale. So good for you enjoying that.
I really like this time around. I was like, okay, it's a mindset. Like you're gonna lose the weight. Don't worry about that. Just enjoy it. And I feel like I'm much healthier this time because I'm just letting myself expand whichever way I'm meant to expand.
Right, and I'm sure the mindfulness work you do is super helpful. Did you know about this the first time with your first baby?
Yeah, actually. When I was pregnant with my first son, I was enrolled in my year-long Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher training at the same time. So I was infusing mindfulness, meditation, breathing from the moment that I was pregnant.
Mm.
And it certainly has been an evolution as my older son is now a toddler, of how my practice has evolved and changed. And so I think it's really help modern moms really understand the shifts of when you're pregnant and how do you infuse mindfulness, to the newborn phase, to the challenging toddler twos, and the talking back of the three-nager phase. So it's really helped me personally and me be a more relatable coach to moms, because it's an ever evolving process.
Absolutely.
Of how you infuse in our life.
Right. So I mentioned a bit about, how you've come to do the work that you now do in the world in the bio. But can you tell the listeners, I'm particularly curious about that moment when you've realized that being a lawyer is not for you? Because I know that being a lawyer, it's such a prestige profession. And I can imagine it was so hard for you to let that go. But I'm just curious to know about that moment when you realized that, that this is not for you, and that decision that you've made to turn into this work instead.
So I went on my spiritual journey in my mid-20s while I was a divorce attorney. And in that realm of and I was an out-of-course divorce attorney, so I did divorce mediations and I did collaborative divorce. So I did a different spectrum. Like, I had the husband and wife in front of me, and I recognized, because you're hearing both sides of the parents, with their situation, and many times it's families, people who have kids who want to do out-of-court divorce resolutions and try to be as amicable as possible because they want to co-parent. So one of the things that when I was doing this as a divorce attorney, it started to trigger my own childhood wounds of the trauma I experienced, like being around angry, resentful couples really triggered what I experienced as a child, and it kind of brought to the surface of all these emotions that I had numbed for most of my life. So it was through my own personal journey, and then working with these clients and understanding that I was a child of parents who were short-tempered, chronically stressed, who didn't know how to handle their emotions. And these are parents right now who are undergoing stress, anxiety, going through divorce is so traumatic. And I knew that their children were definitely experiencing and absorbing this energy that I was experiencing in the mediation room. So that's when I started getting curious, when I found relief in my life. Like when I started going to yoga and meditating at the age of 26, I was like, why aren't we teaching kids this? So I had this really weird thought that just wouldn't go away, and said, become a kids yoga teacher, become a kids yoga teacher. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? But I just followed the thought. So I was a divorce attorney by day, and then my husband and I own preschools. So in the afternoons, I would carve out time to teach yoga and mindfulness to kids. So that's kind of how I segued into it. And then over a period of time, it was probably 3 years, I phased out of being a divorce attorney because I started talking more about mindfulness and yoga. I started writing more about it, and moms started coming to me. It was very organic. Moms would read my articles and they would come to me and be like, I want to be coached by you. I want to know how I can bring this into my life and how I can bring it into my kids' life. And that's really how my journey began. It was very organic, just kind of, I didn't stop cold turkey, the divorce thing, but I kind of segued and did it together. And then there was a point, and I was like, I'm not meant to be an attorney. And I just focused slowly on the coaching and what I do now.
Was it hard for you to let that go?
It wasn't. I think deep down, I always knew that I was meant to do something really big. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to fulfill my life purpose in a courtroom. And so for me, when I I was actually felt very empowered because I listened to my intuition and I took the steps that were necessary. And when I look at my life now, 10 years later, after not practicing law anymore, I would never have been able to make the impact that I'm making, doing the work that I feel so passionate about. And I think interestingly enough, I have a lot of clients who are on the verge of divorce, or they're in the divorce process and there's a lot of emotions coming up for them and they want to use mindfulness to help themselves and their kids. So it's weird. I still help a lot of moms who are going through those emotional situations. So it was not a waste of time, because I think it all was setting me up to where I am today and how I can uniquely connect to moms and help them understand how to emotionally move through that process that's so traumatic.
Right. I think I asked this question purposefully because I get a lot of, I talk a lot with moms and women who, almost are stuck in that place of being a good girl and doing the right thing. And there are a lot of women who come to me and, they are on their own specific healing journeys of healing their body and establishing a healthier relationship with food and bringing their hormones into balance. But every single time I hear them struggling with this, with mommy issues, like being that stuck in the girl world or zone, in between this relationship of the mother and daughter. And I asked this specifically because I know for myself, for example, my mom has been pushing me into the, into the corporate world and working in a place with benefits and, that has like a high prestige, so that she then can tell everybody, that my daughter is a lawyer or my daughter is a CEO at a company, So I just asked this purposefully because I want everybody who listens to the show to know that this is actually possible when you hear to that soul ache, and how it looks like on the other side. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely, I can completely relate to you because so many people ask me like, oh my gosh, do you miss practicing law? And I almost, chuckle because it's like, I know that a lot of us want that safety. Like if we're not happy, because I think corporate's great. Some people are meant to be in the corporate world and you can still be mindful and still be a working mom in the corporate world. It's just that there's some people who are like you said, that soul ache, that they feel like they're meant to do more or they can make a greater impact. And one of the things I want to say is that you don't have to stop your day job to pursue what it is that you desire, because that's not necessarily the financial reality or just the reality that you have. So I think you can always make a marrying of the two, and then you just never know like where it's going to lead you, because I could never have imagined where I am today back when I was back when I wasn't practicing, or when I was practicing law. So it's just kind of letting each step unfold, one day at a time.
I love that. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, I overlooked that point. Because it's true. It's true. Some people are meant to be in the corporate world. It's just, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. And clearly it wasn't for you too. So let's talk about the work that you do, because your work is, I love how you talk a lot about the fact that mindfulness could be used by people who are short on time. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, why is it that sometimes as moms, and I mean, I could consider myself as a conscious mother, and I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast are also conscious moms. But why is it that sometimes as mothers and really humans, we can stay patient and loving with our kids, many times, but other times we are immediately snappy. So I'm going to give you an example. I've noticed in my own experience that I'm like, calmer and, more kind of regulated on regular days. But I'm so snappy when I know, for example, that my mother-in-law is coming to visit. What's happening there in terms of your biological response or your nervous system response? What's happening there?
So this was the hot button question for me in the beginning of this year, because I, like you, like I mentioned, I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation, for the past 10 years, but since being a mom from day one. And so earlier this year, I noticed that I was having moments like what you're saying, like just immediately snapping, like things that normally wouldn't, upset me, like spilled milk or, my son taking a little bit longer to do something, was irritating me. And I noticed that I was being more short-tempered. And
Right.
it was one of the biggest questions that I feel like so many moms ask: why can I stay patient sometimes? And then why do I lose it completely and have a knee-jerk reaction times? And so I was really working really hard because I needed to understand why this was happening. Why was it that, I can even be honest, that my mindful resets or the mindful breathing was working sometimes, and why on other times was the mindful breathing and the meditation not working? And so I started something in one of my meditations. It came to me to start this impatience journal. And this impatience journal, I got this download in my mind, and I literally made this Excel sheet, and it wrote out like what happened, what was the trigger situation with my child. And usually it was what we feel the most guilt about is when we snap at the ones that we love, especially our children. So it was like, what happened, what was my child's unmet need, or what was his stress type, or what was he experiencing, then what was my response to it, what was my stress type, and what if I didn't respond the way that I wanted to respond, what was my game plan for the future? And if I did respond the way that I was proud of, then I wrote, what mindful resets did I use? What tools did I use to help me move through it? I did this for 30 days, and it changed my life. It gave me so much perspective of understanding when I snap and when I can stay calm. And so a lot of it dates back to understanding that we all have 3 different stress types. And according to Ayurveda, which is one of the most ancient, it's a 5,000-year-old natural oldest medicine practice based in India, but it's all about creating balance in your body. And so anytime we feel angry or we snap or we get upset, that is a red flag that our body is imbalanced, that there is something going on that is causing wires to be loose, right? Our fight or flight is getting activated.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that what triggers you and what your stress response is can be very different than what triggers me. And we can see that in our children very easily, right? You could have 2 or 3 children born from the same parents, but there's different things that activate and cause one child to melt down versus another.
Yes.
So we all have this predominant stress response. And there's 3 different stressors that we experience on a daily basis. One is mental stress. The second one is emotional stress. And the third is physical stress. And so we all experience and can feel overwhelmed by this depending on what we're experiencing. But there's certain types of stressors that I realized when I did the impatience journal that will cause us to snap and get triggered immediately. So let me just explain. So like mental stress is when your mind is racing. I need to be doing this. I'm not good enough. Like all those thoughts. So say, for example, when you are getting nervous or anxious that you're going to be around your mother-in-law, next time check in. Ask yourself, is my mind racing? Because you might be experiencing mental stress because you're overstimulating, overthinking, overworrying, overanalyzing, and you're stuck in your head. And that's what's causing the stress response of snapping immediately because you're in a mental state of mind. The other way is emotional stress. Now, this is when these are the people who snap immediately. So when anything annoying, frustrating, when something is out of your control or something unplanned happens, these are the people who immediately snap. So that, we all can say like, oh, we fall under that category, but it's not necessarily the case. So emotional stress obviously is like when we're worried about, when we're in a fearful state, when we are feeling unworthy, when we're feeling powerless, when we're disconnected from our soul or our higher power. This is when emotional stress can kind of take over. When you're feeling grief, when you're feeling an overwhelm of a specific feeling. So that could be anger too, but it doesn't necessarily have to be anger. It could be any of those emotions that make us feel disconnected, disempowered, unworthy. The third is physical stress. So anytime we feel tired, of course, hungry, we're fatigued, that can cause us to have an immediate stress response. So what we have to understand is getting kind of clear that when a situation happens and we respond in a way that was not ideal, that we snap or we're impatient or we say something that is a little harsher than what we would like to, just check in. And I ask myself, and you can ask yourself this really quick question in the second. Is my mind racing? Am I feeling annoyed or impatient? Or the third one is, am I tired or fatigued? So like, you'll know immediately, like if you're caught in your mind, like if you're having mental stress, you're going to feel like your mind is heavy. Like when you do that really quick check-in, you're going to be like, oh, I'm stuck in my mind. And that's why I immediately reacted. If you're kind of feeling disempowered, disconnected, there could be something that's going on outside of the situation, and I'm gonna talk about that in 1 second. Then it could be an emotional stress. And then the third is the physical, right? Like if you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're burned out. And what I realized is that there are different mindful resets and different breathing tools and different things that we do to help us find relief in the moment for those three different stressors. So it's not just taking the generic 3 deep breaths in that's going to work for the mental, the emotional, and the physical stress.
Right.
And that was groundbreaking.
Right.
Thank you for saying that.
Because I've been practicing this for years now. And there are still times when I do the breathing, I do the I do everything, but I'm still like energetically, my vibration is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill somebody.
Yes.
So what's happening? But before you do that, before you say that, I wanted to ask you this. So these stress response, the three different, the mental, the emotional, and the physical, are they something that we are born with, or is this something that we learn through modeling from our own parents? Like, is it nurture versus nature? Like, what's the...
So what triggers us, our fight or flight response, is actually predominated. So in Ayurveda, they call it doshas. So there's Vata dosha, there's Pitta dosha, and then there's Kapha dosha. And so we all have our own. You have one that's predominant, but you could actually have like a dual dosha. And so someone who's a Vata like me, I experience, when I'm stressed out, I get anxious. I'm a more mental stressor. So I feel nervous, I feel anxious. So that's the racing mind, the overthinking. The Pitta, which is about fire, they're the hot blood, like hot tempered, anything that goes not their way, they're going to be short fused. So I immediately
think about one of my daughters.
The hot temporary, like,
yes,
cool immediately if things don't go their way. And
right.
Kapha's the unique one. I feel like they're the ones who, whenever they feel overwhelmed, they actually kind of shut down and they might not share their emotions. So they're the ones that might come to food to kind of comfort them more. They're the ones that generally their personality is very easygoing and they're kind of go with the flow, but when they feel stressed, they shut down. So we all have, like I said, we all experience emotional, mental, and physical stress in the modern world because we're so bombarded with technology. We're living fast-paced lives. So we all experience it. but there will be, like when I did the impatience journal, I noticed that specifically, like which times I snap. Like I don't shout very much, so I'm not much of an emotional stressor. But when I'm tired, or I'm like not so much hungry either. When I'm tired, I can lose my cool much quicker than. And when my husband's hungry, he will lose his cool. If he's tired, he doesn't necessarily lose his cool. So it's really cool to see, like when you really are mindful about what stressor am I experiencing right now that's causing me to get into a fight or flight mode. You get really clear about what triggers you, and then using the right tool to obviously help you move through it. Because like you said, like there are times that you could take a deep breath and you're like, wait, this is totally not working. And I can raise my hand to that too. And that's what was so frustrating. It's like, well, does this really not work? Or what's the deal with this? Because it does work sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes.
I know. And the story I was telling myself is like, okay, I need to get to my yoga mat, and it's because I missed, which could be true, right? Because sometimes I've noticed that when I miss a practice, which happens sometimes, right? Where all like life happens, but then it makes this whole process of living this way not very sustainable. And so there must be something else that is happening. And I love how you're bringing this awareness into my mind that it could be one of these three that are being out of balance. So now let's talk about what can we do? What are some mindfulness techniques that we can use for each each imbalance, the mental, the emotional, the physical, and what we can do to bring ourselves back into homeostasis.
Yeah. So I like to say, like, when we're experiencing, and there's two different types of stress. So we're only talking about right now daily stress that we experience in the moment, like something unexpected happens and we are reacting to that. So obviously the most ideal response that we want, right, is what I like to call, it's the acronym STOP, right? We want to stop stress in its track. So the ideal response would be either in the moment to be silent and to then respond from a more thoughtful place, right? Like think before we speak, that whole acronym that they have, like, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it, intelligent? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Like that acronym that they have. So that's the most ideal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Is to have self-control, to be able to respond from a respectful and calm place. So when that being said, is that there is the mindfulness resets are, the purpose of them is meant to create that pause. Like it's not like that's what we want, is to create that pause. So that means, and I share this because that means that we might recognize that in that moment that we need to take space away. So it's like, we're not going to be, just because we do the breathing resets, and I'm going to teach you 3 different tools you can use. Just because you do the tools doesn't mean that you might need to take a step away. Like your fight or flight might be activated. It's just recognizing, okay, can I stay silent and keep my cool in the moment and then speak? Or do I need to walk away and take some space? That's the goal of what a mindful reset's supposed to do. And what the interesting thing is that through research, this is scientific research, that the anger life cycle of like that fight or flight life cycle, if our body is in balance, it should move out of our body within 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so the interesting thing is, and I like to think of it, that's kind of like the labor surge. So like it's the ride up and the ride down. And if you are in that surge longer, like if you're feeling anger and you're feeling upset and if you're feeling overwhelmed, even after doing that mindful reset for more than 90 seconds, and I like to give 5 minutes because sometimes you need to take a breather, it takes a little bit longer. So like I say, if I'm still feeling angry and triggered within 5 minutes, that means I'm experiencing a chronic stress. So I just want to kind of share that before I give the tool, because when you're experiencing chronic stress, there's another set of tools that you need to use to help you move through it. So let's start with mental stress. That's what we did first, right? So mental stress is all about the breathing technique to do. It's not just a deep inhale and a deep exhale. This deep inhale, it is through your nose, but the exhale has to be out of your mouth. So when we're feeling anxious, and that's generally what happens when we are experiencing mental stress, it's the overactive mind. To slow down the breath and to slow down the mind, it's about taking a deep inhale in through your nose and exhaling out of your mouth, but letting the exhale be longer than the inhale. That's what resets our nervous system to let our minds become reintegrated again and basically slow the thought process down. And that's what we need for mental stress resets, is to stop our thinking in our mind. So for that reset is learning is in through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, but exhale is longer than the inhale. So that's for mental stress. And then for emotional stress creates heat in our body. So when you're like angry or you're impatient and you're frustrated, generally these people are hot-blooded, or you feel like you could feel the heat rising to your face. You feel heat in your body. So you need something that cools you down. So there is a breathing technique that helps you do this. So I'm going to teach you the breathing technique, but I'm going to share some other ways that I find that also helps. So if the breathing technique through this is actually breathing in through your mouth, like in a pursed O, like.
All right, it is cooling. I feel the cooling.
Because when you breathe in through your mouth, you can kind of feel like it's a cooling effect, and that's actually what's happening.
It is cooling, yeah.
Yeah, it's cooling as it comes in, and that's actually what's going to help your nervous system start to cool down. That's what emotional stressors need, is like you need to cool yourself down. Sometimes what helps me is that to get that immediate cool down is that I'll go into the bathroom, and actually these people, if they put cold water like on their face, on their like wash with their hands with cold water, that actually also stimulates your nervous system to start cooling down really quickly. So it's like when your child is overheating, if you put a cool rag on their neck, and if you mentioned that one of your daughters might be this stress type, giving her popsicles, making sure, like if she's overheated physically, putting her in a situation that she can cool herself down physically will automatically help these people just shut down. Like they will start to calm down. So
I have to say something, because I've noticed that intuitively, and lately I've been paying attention to the things that our children do intuitively, and we almost like stop it because it annoys us. So one of those things are that she is like, this child drinks the most water out of all of us. So now it makes sense, because that is intuitively her way of cooling herself down. And if I could give, I've noticed also that she would prefer cold water as opposed to warm water. So this is mind blowing. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. And I want to go back to like the mental stressors, because you talked about physical, because this is really important. This is like, when I'm talking about this, think about your own children and their personalities. So Vatas, the people who are the mentally, like if you find that your child is more anxious, more in their mind, more nervous, they need to have warmer bodies. Like, so for me, anytime my bodies or my extremities are cold, my nervous system starts to shut down. Like I will snap. So it's also like, if you notice that you have a child that is more nervous and they like prefer warmer temperatures, there's a reason for that. And you might be thinking, oh my God, it's so hot. Why are you sleeping with the blanket on? It's because that keeps that makes them feel safe. That makes their nervous system feel safe.
That child is actually me.
That's me too.
Because I still, in the summer, and it's like 32 degrees outside, and I still sleep with my duvet in the summer. Yeah. So that is me.
Yeah. See, so it really makes a lot of sense. And like, I want to quickly share, I shared this with my friend, and she said that she took her son out of the pool, and they live in California. She has 2 kids. it's really hot in Southern California. And she's like, one of my child needs like his room with like a heater and it's like a sauna. And then my daughter, she needs like the air conditioning blasting. It's the same house, it's the same temperature, but and we were able to recognize that he's a Vata type and she's a Pitta. So that's why they need different temperatures that make them feel safe and makes their nervous system feel safe.
Wow, that's incredible. Guys, we moms must know this stuff. This is why this podcast is called Health Begins with Mom, because we are, as mothers, we are healers, and this stuff, like how can we not know this? Like, we have to know this stuff. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, keep going.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love sharing because it was totally like groundbreaking for me too. And I was like, everybody needs to know this. Like, we totally need to know this because it really helps us when our child is melting down to really have a greater understanding of why they're feeling triggered and a physiological standpoint too, right? It's not just like the behavioral standpoint, which we talk so much about and which we read so much about, but also what's physically happening that's causing their fight or flight to get activated. So
we spoke about the mental and we spoke about the emotional reset. What about the physical? Is it like
the physical is one of the quickest ways to do physical reset. So our nostrils, we might think that we breathe naturally in and out of both of our nostrils, but actually the dominance of our nostrils. So sometimes we're breathing strongly through our left nostrils. Sometimes we're breathing strongly through our right nostril. And you can quickly test that out by like plugging in one of your nostrils and taking a deep breath in, seeing if that airway is clear, and then doing it on the other side and seeing if the airway is clear. Sometimes you are equally breathing through both nostrils, which is amazing because that shows that your brain is in balance, that both hemispheres of your brains are activated. But there are other times that you will notice. So I always ask moms to experiment. Say like you are either having trouble falling asleep or you wake up feeling fatigued. Test out your nostrils, and I guarantee you, I will put money on it that you, like if you're having trouble falling asleep, that means that your left nostril is clogged and your right nostril you're free flowing with your right nostril. And if you wake up in the morning and your left nostril is flowing and your right nostril is clogged, that's the sign that there's fatigue. So basically, your left nostril is related to moon energy, which is all about relaxation. So when you want to calm yourself down, when you want to relax, when you want to go to sleep, you want to make sure that your left nostril is open and flowing. The right nostril is sun energy. So that's all about having energy, taking the energy of the sun and having vitality and to have movement. So during the daytime, especially in the morning, we want our right nostril to be open because that's going to activate us to feel energized. So this is something that I certainly urge you to practice, but the quickest way to help you feel that boost of energy is just closing your left nostril and start breathing through the right nostril. And so you might find that it's actually hard because if it's really clogged because you're really tired and you're really fatigued, what I do is a little trick is that I'll breathe through the right, and then I'll close the right real quick and I'll breathe through the left, and then I'll open, so I'll basically open the right, then open the left, open the right, open the left. So you're breathing in one nostril at a time, and it will quickly open it up. I don't know if that makes sense. But
totally makes sense. To me,
yeah.
It does. Because I noticed that I don't have problems with falling asleep, but I do most of the times wake up kind of tired. Mm-hmm. And my left side is open. And my right side, I still breathe through it, but it's kind of clogged. Okay.
Yeah. You'll feel like, kind of, it's really interesting when you start isolating the nostril, you'll feel like it's not like clogged when you're like sick, but it is stuffy. Like it's the air is not flowing as fluidly. So opening up your right nostril and checking in, like, a lot of moms, that 4 o'clock or that, 5 o'clock time period where, you're kind of drained from the day, but then you have to have the second wind as you do dinner time and nap time. Evening routine. Check in your nostril at that time and just do some long, deep breathing in and out through your right nostril, doing it just for 60 seconds to 90 seconds, just so that the airway opens up. You'll naturally just feel like this
Better.
boost of energy. And so, yeah, you will. It's so amazing how that one's like an immediate relief. Like you'll feel that burst of energy kind of. I do it as needed. So if you notice that in like an hour or two, you feel like your energy's kind of drained again, do it again. And you'll get that extra energy to kind of carry you through the next step of whatever you need to do.
I love this so much, Tejal, because I love how you are giving us actual practical tools we can today start practicing. And I think the best time for me personally is in the car to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, I love driving because I know that my kids are safe. They're not gonna hurt each other. They're buckled in. and I can, this is the best time I can actually do some self-care. Obviously without closing my eyes, but the breathing stuff, that's when I've noticed that I practice them mostly when I drive. So I think, I hope you guys can take that advice. Tejal, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you do and for all the great tips that you shared today. And actually on this podcast, I have the interview is almost like split into two halves. So the first half is all about what you do and, your tips and amazing stuff. And the second part of the podcast is when I introduce you to the listeners on a more intimate level, if you will. So if you're open to that, I would love to ask you a few other questions.
Yeah, I'd love it. Go for it.
Okay, so the first question is, this show is all about inspiring mothers to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. And I like calling it being a goddess or a diva in your life. And so I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
So for me, I think that daily so in the form of mindful resets, like what we just talked about, daily self-care is something that's the most important for me, only because I know that I need daily maintenance in order to be my best self. So for me, I wake up every morning at 5:30, and that is my time to kind of reconnect with myself, to do my meditation. And I know that in a few months that's going to change, and 5:30 won't be my time.
Right.
But I really, for me to be fluid, and I really don't create rigidity in my life, helps me feel like a goddess. Like I go with the flow. When I'm going to have this newborn baby, I'm going to fit in meditation wherever I can. So for me, that's what makes me feel whole, that makes me feel balanced, and it helps me reconnect to the greatest part of my being, which is my power and my peace.
Love that so much. Second question, in one sentence, what is your vision for your life? What are you creating? What is your life's purpose?
My vision is to help moms raise the first generation of mindful children.
Love that so much. One so easy and love it. Yes. I support you in that. Third question, what advice does your now mommy self would have given to your pre-mommy self?
Oh my goodness. So much. So I think for me, and this might not relate to a lot of moms, but maybe it will. I always envisioned, like I always had a vision of what motherhood will look like. Like, so I grew up and I always thought that, I was going to be a mom of a boy and a girl. And I thought that's what my vision of what a mother was. And so as as I mentioned, I have a son, and earlier this year I found out that I'm having my second son. So I think what I wish I knew before I became a mom is that it's not about the gender that makes you the mother. It's about the souls that are coming in, because it took me a while to process that. Oh my God, I'm going to be a boy mom, boy mom. So I think that the vision that we hold, that like we need to be a mom of a certain gender, and that defines us as a mother, of how we're going to be a mother, versus inviting that we have souls despite the gender that come into our life that help us. It's about the souls, not so much the gender. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think you're the first one who actually referred to the gender. And it's so true. It's so true. I also am a mom of 3 girls, not boys, but girls. And I always felt like, that incompletion. And everybody tells me, oh, it's okay, you're still young. The last one, the 4th one is going to be a boy. And I'm like, no, I'm totally good being a mom of girls. Like, I'm complete.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you. Okay. 4th question. Fourth question. Moms should invest in themselves because
without fulfilling our own, fulfilling and building our own cup, we have nothing to give others.
Yes, it's true. 5th question. I like to keep it real and show listeners that even though someone is an expert in one area, they might be struggling with other things. So what are some of your current challenges as a woman, wife, or mother?
I think for me, I always have a little bit of a struggle with, and it's always a growing process of communication with my husband. So we're different personalities. We're different. We handle stress differently. We handle life differently. I think for me, learning to see my husband's point of view and kind of expand into that is always a struggle and always something that I'm always constantly like learning and growing.
Yeah. 6th question. Not every woman is a mother, but every mother is a daughter. Every woman is a daughter. How do you think that your relationship with your own mom helps to shape who you are today?
Well, I had a very challenging relationship with my mom, and at a young age, I saw some pretty difficult things with my relationship with my mom. And my brother had said something to me when I was 10 years old that stuck with me. And he said that, use this as a sign and an experience of what kind of mom you don't want to be, and learn from it. And so I always really, I always looked at my mom and kind of understanding what is it that a child feels when you're yelling and you're screaming and when you're shaming a child. And I really do try to be very mindful of how, and aware of how shouting and shaming and punishing and disciplining affects my own son. And I think it's shaped a lot of who I am, because it's kind of helped me understand who I don't want to be.
Yes.
As a parent.
Oh, so many of the women I talk to have the same experience. So thank you. It's definitely a truth for a lot of us. So Tejal, thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful and juicy conversation, and also useful. Before I let you go, can you share with everybody where they can connect with you, how they can find you, how they can work with you, maybe your social media handles or your Facebook group? Now is the time for that.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So many different ways to connect. First thing is, if you want more additional tools or tips, the best place is to go to my website, which is www.tejalvpatel.com. So it's just my name. If you want to go further and take the next steps, I offer 3 different courses based on where you are. So if you're newbie to mindfulness and you've never taken a mindful breath in your life, I have a 7-day ditch stress detox course, which is a really gentle way of helping you learn how to infuse these little mindful resets like we were talking about today, these very practical, simple, 30 to 60 second tools that we can infuse. If you are someone who's looking to infuse mindfulness into your own life more consistently, so like exactly what we talked about today, like you want to have a better handle on your mental, emotional, and physical stress, and you want to learn meditations and more breathing techniques that kind of help you through those, the Mindful Mama experience is the perfect course for you. So you can definitely join me on that. And then the third one is the Mindful Kids Masterclass. So if you're really looking to focus on your children and how to infuse mindfulness into their life, that's the course for you. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's kind of like linear. So you can start from the first and then go to the third. On Facebook, I have a private Mindful Mom group, which I spend a lot of time answering questions, connecting, giving free tips. So you can look that up, and it's Mod Zen Mama. So you can just look up Facebook groups /Mod Zen Mama, and you can check me out there. Look me up, Tejal V. Patel on Facebook, and I spend a lot of time on Instagram. So look me up at Tejal V. Patel so you can get a glimpse of my mindful and not so mindful moments in my life as a mom.
All right, perfect. And also, Tejal, I think you wanted to share a little bit about the 10% discount that you're providing for the listeners. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So like if you really were digging what we were talking about today and you want to learn this more tools and more step-by-step techniques to help you better manage your stress and learn mindful resets, the Mindful Mama experience, just for your listeners, Dorit, I have a special coupon code Dorit10, and you can get 10% off that course. So you can go to themindfulmamaexperience.com and you can sign up for that course. I always have an element of personal coaching in there. You have access to me for questions. So I really make myself accessible. So that I'm so excited to gift that to you guys.
That's amazing. And I will have all the links of anything you mentioned today, Tejal, in the show notes below. So please, if you're interested, go there and get connected to this amazing Mod Zen Mama, because she definitely is one that walks her talk. And I so look up to you. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you so much. 10 years ago, being so courageous and just staying true to yourself. I really honor and respect that. Thank you so much for your time, Tejal.
Thank you, Dorit.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.